Man, I know so many people who go out and buy a new bike and then they take it home, they ride it, they hang it up after their ride, they don't touch the thing, they do nothing to set it up for themselves. And it pains me to see because I know there's so much more you can do to not only make it safer, but also to get the best performance out of that bike. So we're gonna walk through some of those things. Stick around, it's gonna be good, and we're gonna make your bike more fun to ride. Let's go. Now, the first thing you're gonna wanna be doing every time you ride your bike, whether it's brand new or you've had it for a few years, is checking some of the bolts to make sure your bike's safe. So specifically, I recommend you check your stem bolts that hold your handlebars on every time you ride. Those are critical. If your handlebars come loose, it's a catastrophic accident waiting to happen. So check those bolts just to make sure they're not loose. You don't want to tighten them every single time. If you continually make them tighter and tighter, eventually you're going to crush your handlebar and have a problem there. So don't do that. I also always check my grips to make sure they're tight, because if a grip comes loose, slides off the handlebar, it's a major accident. And then your axles, most of them are quick release levers. Just grab those levers, make sure they're not coming loose, and tighten them back up. Now, the next thing you should be doing every time you ride your bike is checking your tire pressure. Modern tires lose pressure pretty quickly within a couple days, so you really need to check it every time you ride to make sure they're set up right. Now, I would recommend for most people, if you're 150 to 170 pounds, you start around 25 PSI in your tires. If you're heavier, say over 200 pounds, I'd recommend you go a little closer to 30 PSI and go from there. Now, if you have too little air, if your tires are too soft, they're gonna feel really squirmy in corners. And if you have too much pressure, your tires are gonna want to deflect and bounce off of rocks and bumps in the trail. So finding that right pressure will have a huge impact on how well your bike rides. Now, the next thing you're gonna wanna do every time you ride your bike is lube your chain. It's not chain's down here, sorry. Lube your chain every time you ride. Now, if you got a brand new bike, it's gonna come with this coating on the chain that's like honey. It is super, super sticky. Everything will stick to it. It's terrible stuff, honestly. So what I recommend is get yourself a degreaser. I use this one here. I'm not sponsored by WD-40, it's just what I use. It seems to work well. You spray a little bit of this on a rag, you wipe your chain down and get that sticky stuff off to start. Then you're ready to lube your chain. Now, I typically use a dry lube. There are dry lubes and there are wet lubes, and they're basically specific to your climate. So if you are somewhere very dry and dusty, get a dry lube. If you're somewhere where it rains all the time, like the Pacific Northwest or the UK, get a wet lube. They'll stay on your chain a little bit better in those wet conditions. Now, the next thing you should be doing every time you ride your bike is just checking your shifting to make sure your bike's shifting through the gears right. Now, if you have a repair stand like this, it's great to be able to get it off the ground and shift through the gears. But if you don't, that's totally fine. What you can do is just go out on a flat street and shift through the gears. Take your time shifting up the gears and then back down through the gears. And if you see that the bike is having a hard time shifting up to those larger size gears with more teeth, then you just need to add a little bit of tension with the barrel adjuster either on your derailleur or up on your shifter. And if it's having a hard time shifting down, you need to take a little tension off that cable to allow it to shift down those gears a little bit easier. Now, those are a few things that I would recommend you do to your bike every time you ride it, and it'll probably take you about 5 minutes once you get the hang of it. It's pretty quick. Just by checking your handlebars, checking your tire pressure, checking your shifting, those things will not only keep you safer out on the trail, but they'll make your bike work better for you and make it last longer. So check those things out every time you ride. On top of that, there are some things that you can do to make sure your bike is set up just perfectly for you. And the first one of those things is checking the seat height. Now, your seat height is something that's really easy to adjust, but I see people all the time with the wrong seat height. And if your seat's too low or too high, not only are you not going to get the power out of your legs, especially going uphill, but it's going to be really hard on your knees. So get the seat height right. It's pretty easy to check. What you need to do is just lean your bike up against a nice solid surface, put your heels on the pedals, and slowly back pedal. And when you get to the bottom of that pedal stroke, your legs should basically be straight. Then when you go to a normal riding position, you put the ball of your foot on the pedal, you're gonna have a slight bend in your knee at the bottom of the pedal stroke. So I'd recommend that every once in a while you double check your seat height to make sure it's right for you. Another way that you can completely change the way your bike feels and customize it to fit you just right is in your handlebars. Now, a lot of bikes nowadays come with really wide handlebars so that they can be cut down. So if your handlebars feel too wide, you can either remove your grips and cut them yourself, or you can take it down to your local bike shop and have them do it, and it's pretty quick and easy. On top of that, you can loosen your stem bolts and you can roll your handlebars forward or back to get them in the position that feels most comfortable for you. You can do this by sitting on your bike and playing with that position to see what feels right and then tightening them down. Just remember to use a torque wrench like we said earlier and make sure those handlebars are tight but not over tightened. On top of that, you can change the positioning of your levers by loosening the bolts on the top of your brake levers. You can change the position of where those levers are. You can also change the position of where your shifter is to get those things in just the right, comfortable position for you. Now, this next one's not something that's going to make you faster out on the trails or even keep you safer, but still something that I highly recommend, and that is putting a vinyl protection kit on your frame. Now, if your bike's new or if it has a pretty decent paint job at this point, I would definitely spend the $50 to $75 to apply one of these kits to your frame. There's clear options, or there's several with different graphic design options that can kind of style up your bike, give it a little bit of that personal touch if you want. And they have sections of vinyl that are designed to fit specific parts of your frame to protect kind of those high wear areas. So definitely highly recommend you look into putting one of those kits on your frame. The only thing I would say is that you got to make sure that your frame is super clean, does not have any lint or residue on it from any kind of bike polish or degreaser or anything like that. You just want to wash it with soap and water, dry it with a lint-free towel, and then make sure it's very dry before you apply that kit. Check this one out. Some people call them mud guards, some people call them fenders, whatever you want to call them. I would highly recommend that you look into getting one of these. They're about 25 or 30 bucks. They're super easy to install, 4 zip ties in maybe 5 minutes. And they'll keep all the debris from flinging off your tire and hitting you in the face. If you've ever had mud or sand or even water after a creek crossing spray up and hit you in the face, it's pretty annoying, especially if something gets in your eye. So this will solve all those problems. Again, maybe 25 or 30 bucks, and it's thin plastic. It'll last a lifetime, so it's a good investment. Super easy. So I know that's a lot of info to take in, but I can guarantee you that if you make some of these changes, it will not only keep you safer on the trails, but it will change your relationship with mountain biking. It'll give you a much better experience all around. Your bike's gonna ride better, you're gonna have better traction, you're gonna be more comfortable and confident out on the trail. So test it out, let me know what you think, and be sure to subscribe, and we appreciate the support. See you later.